Okay, hey everyone, welcome to the Gallimaufric Science Podcast, a podcast about science, art, and culture. My name is Tommy, and joining me are two of my co-hosts, Scott and Raven. Zach might join us a little bit later. So we're having another one of these a la carte episode live stream because we got stuff we want to talk about. Just for any regular listeners, in case you're wondering, like, oh, are they just going to do live stream from now on in 2022? No, we're going to be, we do actually have pre-recorded an episode a few weeks ago, and we're going to be, you know, uploading that pretty much like after this live stream.
Yep.
So this is just kind of a filler in the meantime, in case, anyone want to listen to us talk about various different topics. So with that out of the way, who wants to get started talking about something? Not me, because I just did the intro.
Yeah, that's true.
Good point.
Okay, Raven, do you want to talk about your thing?
I do actually. So, hang on just a second. Let me bring up my screen here. If I could get a link to the live stream so I could tweet it
Oh,
out to
right.
Scott. Thank you very much. So, we are going to talk today. My subject is about goldfish drivers. Um, there was a recent study released by an Israeli university. Let me see if I can't get the name. Ben Gurion University of the Negev. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced all of that, but Ben Gurion University of the Negev came up with a great little uh, all-terrain vehicle, as it were, for a goldfish. Now, this isn't the first time that people have been doing this, making cars for fish. Something happened in 2014 with Studio Deep out of the Netherlands, I believe. And they were really just kind of looking at doing image recognition with computer vision, is what they called it. So they were seeing if they couldn't get an RC car to move around using uh, uh, imaging software where they fed the video of a goldfish swimming around in its tank through a camera attached to the tank, which is then attached to a little RC car, which would motor around this office. And there wasn't anything scientific about it other than they were just testing out their software. Um, Flash forward to
Hey
2022.
Scott, can you share Raven's screen? She's showing us like
Yeah,
how
I'm
that
doing that right
contraption
now.
works.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and show the first 2014 little guy here. This is probably the one we're most familiar with, where it's just the top down of the goldfish swimming around. So this one's actually not part of the 2022 study, but this is one of the more common images shown with goldfish drivers. So this is from the 2014 Studio Deep team, Studio Dip. Uh, it's Studio DIIP, and I believe that DIIP stands for Digital Imaging uh, something or other. Sorry. Anyway, so the little camera looks at the fish and determines which part of the tank it's in relative to the fish and to the camera, and then it drives the RC car in that direction. So it was fairly crude back in 2022, and the people at this Israeli university decided to kind of up the game a little bit. So they have LiDAR instead of just a regular camera, and LiDAR gives you a much more accurate representation of what's going on in the environment, other than just what they were using, which was kind of the Studio Dip was using kind of like a high contrasty type image to see where their fish was. This actually has a little bit more tech behind it, 6 years more, in fact. Let me go ahead and find the video, start that up for you. So basically, you have a little bit of a different configuration from what the folks in 2014 came out. It's two wheels on either side of this tank, and only two wheels turn at either time, and it's kind of perpendicular to each other. So it's a little bit weird, but this shows a couple things. For one, that the goldfish kind of knows that, hey, there's stuff going on outside my tank here, and I kind of want to interact with it, and I can. So right here, you can see the university trained their goldfish to go towards a target on the wall, and then they would get a food reward once they hit the target. And it didn't matter what part of the room they were in, they figured out how to get to the other side by driving a tank, basically. Get it? Haha.
It's a fish tank. It's a
It's a
pun.
fish tank. Ah, yes, because I'm funny, right?
It's
No.
funny.
So it's funny. Yeah. So here the goldfish is shown. He kind of bumped the wrong part of the wall and he didn't get the reward. So the fish knows to correct. So anybody who wants to, talk about goldfish memory maybe needs to think again because apparently goldfish have just fine memories. Um, they just like to eat. They're gluttons. That's why they
Yeah,
feed.
I'm pretty sure that like the whole goldfish memory thing, I think this is just for people who keep fish in tiny tanks to tell themselves to not feel bad about animal cruelty. I'm sure that's pretty much where that comes from.
Exactly right, because there's this actual misconception that a goldfish is okay in like a small, like 5 gallon aquarium. They're like a starter fish for okay for an apartment. They're not really any of that. You need at least 30 gallons of water per goldfish. So this is kind of cool, and it gives the goldfish like a worldwide aquarium to swim around. So the fact that these two things were done so far apart shows that not only are goldfish capable of navigating around just fine on land if you give them the tools, uh, they can learn several different types of tools because these two carts between 2014 and 2022 are vastly different. You have basically what was just an RC car back in 2014, and now you've got something a little more different where the goldfish has to kind of work at getting the uh, car to run straight because it's diagonals instead of the way an RC car moves. It's a little
Right.
different. So they're clever. They can figure things out. They can navigate around obstacles with this mech suit, basically. In fact, there's a meme going around that you put a goldfish in a mech suit, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, cool, I got this," you know. So uh, I don't know if a lot of our listeners know this, but I used to own a piranha a long time ago, and we had two dogs that were very similar in size, shape, and conformation and coloration. Um, and one of them was a puppy at the time, and when we first got this fish, so um, we figured out that he could see things outside his tank, but only to a certain extent. So he couldn't enough for him to see it over the lip of his tank. So one day we were watching the fish in his tank, and he sees one of the dogs go by, and then the other dog comes by, and she's 6 or 8 months old at this point now, and finally big enough to be seen by this fish, and he did a double take. Like he was like, "Yeah, okay. Oh, what? There's two of them now?" And I watched him just kind of follow them from one end of his tank to the other, and he was completely aware of what was going on outside and wanted to join in on the fun even. So I kind of had, a daydream of what would have happened had I had this tech back in 2008 when I had this fish. Would he try to let himself outside with the dogs and go frolic in the yard? Probably. You never know. But this is some people might also listen in on this and go, well, so what? We've taught a fish how to drive. You know, why would you do that? Why would you waste the money? And it's not really about teaching the goldfish how to drive. It's finding ways to apply this kind of technology for folks that may have limited abilities to navigate around. If you can hook this up to some kind of an electric wheelchair with the ability to sense obstacles in front of you with lidar. If you don't have, the greatest reflexes, maybe the wheelchair can navigate you out of the way instead. There's some fundamental ways you can apply these technologies. It's not just about goldfish driving. teaching a goldfish how to drive or anything like that. But it also kind of opens up things about animal cognition and how they interpret their environments. And certain things are universal about how you navigate around an environment. So that could be, kind of compelling to research more in the future as far as that goes. But yeah, that's pretty much my topic today.
Well,
Goldfish
I have some
drivers.
questions.
Sure, yes, go ahead. Question
Well,
time.
basically, was it just goldfish this was done with, or did they use any other fish?
It looks like just goldfish. So the
Hmm.
people there in Studio Dip, they use a goldfish because they're cheap, they're easy to get. And same with uh, the Israeli research team. They actually had 6 different goldfish that they trained.
Oh,
But it
okay.
seems it seems like just because goldfish, I believe, are a model organism, kind of like C. elegans and some other creatures out there.
Yeah, basically, why not a goldfish? Because
Yeah,
it's
why
like
not?
people keep they're rarely available, they're common, people keep them for a long time. So if you were to do an experiment on a fish, it would be a goldfish. Like you wouldn't just get any random species of wild fish. So if for no other reason than just the accessibility of it.
Yeah, I would think that would be the main reason. And goldfish are actually fairly long lived. You can keep them for a long time.
Yeah, I remember you had a Valhalla tank set up for the goldfish.
Yes, because I did do live feeding for my piranha. He wasn't mine to begin with. I got him from a family that was doing renovations. They couldn't keep the fish anymore. So he was, an old fish by the time I got him. But yeah, kind of set in his ways. So I would get him, live feeder fish. And the ones that survived, what was it, 3 weeks? Because I would get, a bunch of new fish every week. And the ones that survived that long, I would take out and put into what I called the Valhalla tank, which was a 55-gallon tank for goldfish. And these goldfish got huge, like salmon sized,
Yeah.
ginormous, 3 kilograms.
Yeah, I was remembering being impressed by that because you did live feeding in the first place for, well, because that's the only option for piranhas, right? Is live feeding.
Um, that's actually not true. You can get if
Oh,
you start them off early, you can get them to go after frozen krill and shrimp and not have to, subject another fish to that kind of torment. But by the time I'd gotten him, he'd already been kind of set in his ways. That's what he actually the guy said he likes hot dogs. I never decided to try that. That didn't seem like a good thing to feed him. So I did try feeding him roughage every now and again. He did like broccoli. Every so often he'd eat a little bit of broccoli.
oh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. In the wild, they usually get the a roughage and fiber and stuff from the fish that they eat because they tend to eat plant-eating fish. Um, there's actually also a plant-eating species called a pacu, which they'll eat anything really. They're omnivorous. They're the freaky
Yeah.
fish that have the human-looking teeth.
They're actually being aquacultured, like they're being farmed in certain places as well, paku. Because I've came across papers reporting on parasites of paku in fish farm, ranging from like acanthocephalans in their gut all the way up to like leeches and stuff like that. So yep, paku is could be coming to your plate somewhere soon.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Interesting indeed. Yeah,
I've
I
only
didn't
seen
know
them in
that.
aquarium, so
Yeah,
aquaria.
and in the wild, the pacu will actually school with the more ferocious red belly piranha, and safety in numbers, and they tend to look very similar. So the red belly just don't. They tend to give them a free pass. They don't even care. They're like, "Hey, you're one of us. Cool. Let's go feed." And then the pacu will either, eat whatever gut content spill out, or they'll eat, whatever detritus they um, happen to muck up or they'll just, nibble on bits of whatever the piranha are eating, but safety in numbers. I thought that was kind of fascinating. But Scott had something that he was going to discuss today about,
Oh,
unless you have any more questions.
I don't have any more questions, but I was kind of waiting to talk to Zach with him. We were going to talk about role playing games and stuff like that.
Okay, well, I can talk about
Yeah.
fish some more. I mean, that's no big deal.
Raven, have you shared out the link for the live stream?
I have not, so hang on, I got tied into talking about fish. Hang on just a sec.
We distracted her. It's okay.
Yes, we did. All right, somebody fill in the time while I do something here.
Okay.
Speaking of fish, I might actually just to follow up on what Raven was talking about. She was talking about like a a car that's being driven by a goldfish. Quite a few years ago, actually, there was an experiment, like over 10 years ago, there was an experiment where scientists got uh, slime mold, a slime mold colony to remotely control a robot. So I don't know if you could see my share screen here or
Yeah,
anything.
slime mold robot.
Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, so that was I thought that was quite interesting. The fact that you can get this, you know, I mean, I did talk about in that Alien Planet or Alien Worlds episode where I talk about how slime molds are capable of intelligent behavior. So there's actually a lot of experiments looking at how slime molds might inform us about computation and biological system and how they
Right.
compute information and process information and stuff like that. So very different direction to where the goldfish study might go. But arguably for me, I think slime molds are more interesting than goldfish, um, just
Okay.
personally speaking. But yeah, that was just what I have to add to that. Yeah, as you can see from the search result, people have done all kinds of experiments with slime molds. Also hooking up a slime mold to a robot face to get it to like show emotions, and also making music from slime molds. So yeah, a lot of really interesting like intersection between robotics and biological science, I guess, going on between slime molds and the field of information processing.
The other cool thing about slime, you can put uh, put certain obstacles in their way that represent things that exist in big cities, and they will come up with their own pathways that kind of mimic how the road system already is.
Um, yeah, so that particular experiment, it's not so much obstacles as much as a food source.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
yeah, so those experiments, and I
Hmm.
think I talked about those experiments in that Alien World episode as well, where what the scientists actually did is that they got like bits of oat and arranged them in a way that is kind of like it's almost like a map of like nodes that represent major cities in whatever countries or stuff like that, and get them to grow out and form a network. And often the network that is created by the slime molds mimic that of like real life maps. So for example, here's one which uh, of the slime mold basically growing a map which looks almost just like the Tokyo railway system.
Huh.
In fact, there are some areas where the connection is more efficient. The slime mold built one is more efficient than that of the actual real life one.
Oh, that's interesting.
Uh, here's another one of course, the United States for, I guess, United States currently non-existing rail system.
Well, we have rail. It just not as
Not
extensive
very
as other
efficient.
countries.
Yeah, pretty
It's not
much
as
like
nice as some of
yeah,
these other
it's pretty much the
countries
same
have.
situation in Australia. We could have rail, and we do have some trains, but could be a lot better. We could like yeah, that's another that's another tangent. But yeah, that I think that would be the study that you're thinking of. Getting
Yes, you are
slime molds
correct.
to grow to various different nodes and see see how slime molds connect them together. Because from, I guess, the slime mold's perspective, if you could call it that, the entire colony are made out of like a limited number of cells. So all of its, I guess you could say, building material for these channels are individual cells. So it needs to allocate these numbers of cells efficiently to connect it to like the richest possible food source, and that's how it end up like coming up with the map that it does. But the question is like, how does it do it? It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't even have what we conventionally call a nervous system in animals. They are capable of communicating somehow, obviously, but not the means through which we know it. So this is kind of always like my go-to example when I talk, like this and ants, my go-to example when it comes to talking about things like alien intelligence and how people have, at least people who don't know about biology have like some really limited sense of like what alien intelligent, like what an alien could actually look like. They still, even people who complain about like, oh, Star Trek having humanoids and stuff like that, when you do ask them like what their ideas of aliens are, it's still variation on like, an animal like a human. Even if it doesn't look like a human, it's still,
Right.
an individual. It still have legs, it still have eyes, and the usual kind of basic kind of stuff that people think of when it comes to an animal. But it's like, look, it's an alien, so it could be it could be anything. Just look at our natural world, and you could see like it could be a swarm of little things, like an ant colony. It could be a blob that could change shape, like a slime mold. So yeah,
They have occasionally had aliens in Star Trek that were outside the human mold, as it were,
yeah.
but
Well, I don't want to
really
like, yeah.
rarely.
Yeah, I don't want to pick particularly on Star Trek because I know that, budget limitation and all that other kind of stuff. I'm kind of just speaking generally when it comes to even people who complain about Star Trek. And when, and I'm thinking of like concept artists and people
Right.
like that, when they come up with their ideas of aliens, it's still, I still look at it, okay, this is still a freaking animal, like just animals with steps, so to speak.
Right.
So, like, it's not really a truly alien intelligence. It's still an animal that have, I guess, individual like solitary thoughts, as in like having their own brain inside their own head and having their own thoughts, as opposed to something like an ant colony that have like emergence behavior and emergence intelligence. So the form that is taken by the alien, even if they look very, very different from humans, they still are kind of like, people's projection of, what they themselves are. But like, oh, what if in the body of like something that looks like an elephant? How alien? Or like, what if it's a bug? And like, bug aliens are such a cliche, but like,
Oh yeah.
bug aliens are never really, alien in the bug sense. They are always just this really caricature of bugs. The bugs are like humanoid. Even if they were,
Yeah.
even if it's like a talking praying mantis, it's still like a talking praying mantis, as opposed to like tiny things that come together and somehow able to communicate as a collective instead of having like their own individual thought in their head. I guess this is like too alien for people to comprehend as like mammals that have their minds stuck inside their skull.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been endless conversations that have been talked about, you know,
Yeah,
about why science fiction in particular doesn't have aliens.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And often it's because the aliens are simply like people's projection of
oh, sure.
um, themselves. Really, like even if I look at some of the people who do science and speculative fiction, they still have aliens that they fly spaceships and they have like individual cells and stuff like that. Yeah, it still isn't alien enough. And the more you know about biology, the more you kind of realize like possibilities, like this, for example, that you kind of go like, our aliens are not really aliens. They're just kind of, like I said, animals with steps.
Or
They,
people
they,
outright. Yeah.
yeah, or people with steps, arguably some of the aliens that people come up with are less aliens than some of the, I guess you could say, non-human intelligence that you see on this planet that are similar to ours. Like look at elephants, look at dolphins, look at octopus. They're all still just animals. They all look very different from us, but they still animals. Like to an alien species, we're practically like siblings to them in terms of like evolutionary gap. So yeah. Anyway, that's just I didn't expect to go into this big rant about aliens, by the way.
No, that's fine.
That's
That's
great.
great.
That's ideal, in fact. You know.
Let me just put that down in the notes so that I know when I do the timestamps where my alien intelligence rant started.
Right.
So yeah, got anything else you want to bring up and talk about?
Hmm. Fish are neat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, speaking of fish, I have a paper that I came across in current biology recently, which was really quite cool and interesting,
Oh, this.
and it
Yeah.
relates to fish. It's
Oh,
saying
okay.
quite
Yes.
well. Yeah, your bit would have sagged in like really quite well if I hadn't gone off on the deep end talking about alien intelligence. So that's on me. I should just seg
Well,
straight into speaking of fish, this. Yeah, so there was a really humongous icefish breeding colony that was discovered in Antarctica. And I think the people that I really want to show this to are, um, I think are people who when it comes to their ideas of animals, it's basically just, you know, birds and mammals. Maybe some reptiles and amphibians, but like that's it. The tetrapods is what they're thinking about. And for them, fish are just like, things that flop around. And like, or even like you said about the myth about the goldfish having, a 5 second memory. They don't really think of fish as having really sophisticated behavior. But this study have these like ice fish, like this massive ice fish breeding colony, which you know is really quite amazing. It was found at a place called Filchner Trough. Uh, 200 it's I wonder how deep it was. It's like about uh yeah, it's like a few hundred meters below sea level, and there's this massive area of about like 240 kilometers square that is just filled with like fish colony, like it's just fish nests. There's like about 60 million nests,
holy
and
cow.
yeah, and they look like this. They have like, yeah, so it's
Oh,
like,
I've seen photos of this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I put a few of them in like the Discord, so yeah. So you can have like, you have these ice fish that are each of them sitting on their own little nest. For the paleo folks who might be watching this, it's almost reminiscent of some of those like reconstruction of Maiasaura. I don't know if you've seen like those, back when Jack Horner was talking about Maiasaur
Right.
and stuff like that, there's all
Oh,
these
right. Yeah.
paintings of like Maiasaur colony of them, on these massive egg mounts and stuff like that. This looks just like that. This just looks just like that. And it's on such a vast scale with, you know, it's it's
That's
like
an
60
enormous
million nests.
colony.
Yeah, 60 million nests covering an area of 240 kilometers. And
Are
it's
there
That's
just been
incredible.
discovered. It's just been discovered.
so are
Um,
there any other colonies that have been discovered, or is this like the first one?
Judging from this, I'm not sure. because I'm not like, this is not like my particular field, but judging from
Right.
how much of a big deal surround this is probably the first, if not among one of the first. Because this is a huge deal. You got
Yeah.
all of these fish, and the fish themselves are really quite interesting. For people who don't know, these fish are called icefish, and they have special kinds of protein running through the blood, which act as a kind of an antifreeze. So they just don't freeze over. These are really, really interesting fish, and like this is really interesting behavior. This is behavior that people don't expect from like, you know, when people think of fish, they either think of like goldfish, or they think of like, when they go down the fish market and there's this bunch of dead fish that then they buy and eat. They don't think of fish as having like sophisticated behavior,
Right.
because they live in an environment that is so different and so alien from us. So for the vast majority of people don't get to see fish like really in the element and doing the things that they naturally do. So this is amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's a vast breeding colony of fish, and up until now, just completely hidden out of sight. And in a way, it's kind of expected, because despite what a lot of people probably think, there's still a lot that is undiscovered about planet. People talking about like going off to other planets and stuff like that, and talk about aliens. And there's like, aliens in our midst, except they're not aliens. They're just ordinary ass animal that live on this planet, and there's heaps of them. We just, as human beings, as like limited terrestrial mammals, there is just so much that we don't know and haven't even seen or discovered yet.
Right.
I would like to see if they find more of these
I
huge
bet
mega
they will.
colonies, because
Oh
They,
that would
yeah.
they
be that
will.
would be really sad if this is the only one and this is like the entire species represented
Uh,
here.
well, I don't know about this species, but I suspect that whatever species this is not the only fish, or even the only ice fish to have this kind of behavior. There
That's
might be other
incredible.
parts of the oceans where this kind of stuff happened. There's like massive colonies. I guess with a place like Antarctica, it's not as well surveyed as other parts of the world, other parts of the ocean. It's still an extremely harsh environment for, you know, human mammals. Yeah, this is like the vast unknown, and it's kind of really concerning. The really concerning thing is with all these people who want to do deep sea mining, and a lot of
Right.
like industrial, like fossil fuel exploration and stuff like that in these kind of environment, under, because they were under the impression that uh, well, two things going on. They were either under the impression that, it's such a like harsh environment, there's nothing living there, or the more likely scenario is that these people don't give a shit anyway. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, ice fish are literally and metaphorically cool, because just look at this.
Yeah. This is amazing. And so many in one spot.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a
it's
nest and not a lek.
okay. So, from my understanding, a lek is a particular type of social group. I'm not sure whether there's leks with fish. I know that there are lek is a term I usually associate with birds, and
Okay.
with a lek, you have a group of birds that get together for enhanced mating opportunities.
Right, right.
So, for example, a like wild turkeys do that. They'll have like a bunch of males who get together to do the display and try to impress a female turkey, and then the dominant male, would then get to mate with the female turkey. The benefits that come for the other males that don't get to mate but contribute to, I guess, winning over the female, is that usually they are the brothers of the main dominant. It's the main dominant one's the big brother. So through inclusive fitness and kin selection, they get some, I guess you could say, reproductive benefit, indirect reproductive benefit from being the wingman for their big brother.
I had no idea that they were an interrelated group, like they were kin.
I don't know whether that's the case for all birds like that, but I think a lot of them are. Both males and females form legs. I know that peahens also form legs,
Oh,
where they
cool.
would like, sidle up to a male and go, okay, you're ours now. It sounds like a harem anime, but like, yeah, that's kind of how it works with peahen as well. Just on the fish thing, there is a video about this very briefly, so I might just play it. Yeah, so you could see
Oh,
like,
nice.
yeah. Hang on, let me just turn off the audio.
For those of you that are going to be joining in on Beware the Radio, we are looking at images of the uh,
Icefish
the
nest.
icefish nest. Sorry, I want to call them a sea robin because I think they're actually related to sea robins.
No,
Oh,
No, they
they
aren't.
just look,
Okay.
yeah,
oh,
they just look like them.
Yeah, I want to call them a sea robin in the worst way. Anyway, we're looking at their nest, and that is incredible.
Yeah,
So,
it's just like for people who are only listening to the audio, just imagine like, like a turkey, like a ground turkey sitting on a nest, but in the place of a turkey, you have like fish.
and
So
rows
fish
upon
sitting on a
rows upon
mound.
rows of them.
Yeah, exactly.
and a
And
definitive
for
nest.
Yeah, exactly. And for like the dinosaur nerds in the audience, just picture those paleo reconstructions of Maiasaura nests and replace all the Maiasaura with fish. And that's exactly how this looks like.
In one of the passes in this video here, it looks
Mhm.
as if you go over a nest where the fish has died and that nest has been abandoned, and you can still see the
Yeah,
carcass there.
the paper did mention that. The paper did mention that they've come across like,
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
carcasses and yeah, yeah. So I
And
don't know what exactly happened there, but for folks at home, if you want to find out, I'll put up a link to the paper as well.
and I'll put up links to the videos and all the papers related to the fish driving too. So this is fascinating because it's like they gather up all the little pebbles and stuff, and that's what they line their nests with.
Oh yeah, there is like many cases of like I guess nest building behaviors in fish. I actually give a lecture about this kind of stuff. There's a lecture I give
Oh,
for first year zoology student talking about parental behavior in what people would call cold-blooded animals, cold-blooded vertebrate animals, little tiny fish. They actually build nests kind of almost like a bird because they weave them out of vegetation.
Oh, that's cool.
oh,
So
I didn't know that.
here it is there.
Huh.
Yeah, little algae house.
Mhm. So yeah, the males would build like a nest. It's
Almost like
almost
a
kind of like
bowerbird.
a yeah, it's almost kind of like a bowerbird thing, except that with bowerbirds, the nest is only for show, whereas this actually have like a a function beyond the display.
Right.
So have like the little stickleback fish right there in the nest. So yeah, so that's something that people don't quite realize about this. Sticklebacks, they build they weave these nests. And those Siamese fighting fish, they build bubble nests. So this is a kind of nest that is not available to terrestrial animals, but they actually blow little bubbles and they form this little bubble raft.
That's how
And
you know. That's how you know you have a happy beta. Actually,
mhm,
we've owned a few betas in our life, and that's how we knew we had the tank just right. Is when he started making
Right.
bubble nest.
because it's like, oh, the conditions are fantastic, gonna start having babies. So yeah,
Kind of
fish
cool
have
too.
really, really sophisticated behavior. There's this other species of fish that escaped my, oh, I think it's a species of char, and they also build nests out of. Okay, that's not what I was thinking of. but like there's a species of char that actually, oh, there it is. No, just chub. Okay, bluehead chub. Yeah, that's another example I
Char
used
is a
in my lecture.
salmonoid.
Yeah, I got those two mixed up. But yeah, they build these like massive kind of like pebble mounds. So they will pick up like, individual pebbles at the bottom of the stream, and then they build like, they build a big nest. And they are kind of what's known as like ecosystem engineers, because by building the mounds, they actually change the environment for the other species as well, and some of the other fish start crowding around it, using it as a shelter or whatever structure. So yeah, they actually play a key ecosystem role simply because they this like this species have evolved to build a nest like that
Right.
for when they're spawning. But yeah,
Now,
fish.
there's some marine fish that do kind of similar behaviors too, right? Like there's
Yep.
a species of pufferfish that, if I
Yep.
recall correctly, that builds a beautiful
Yep.
kind of like floral
Yep.
shaped nest.
The fish crop circles.
The fish crop circle. Yes, there it is.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
I'd forgotten all about this. I don't know why.
Yeah. And when you see like like the actual fish is really quite tiny. Like that little thing there is the fish. So uh, yeah, so it's a massive circle. It builds this like, entire nest, and the male builds the nest, and then the female will come along and check whether it looks, whether it looks pretty or not. And then if it does, then she would like lay her eggs on it, and then it would come along and spawn it. So kind of, yeah, kind of almost like the stickleback thing. The males would build a nest and go, "Hey, check out my crib. What do you reckon?" And then if the female was like, "Yeah, it looks good," then she'll be like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna lay my eggs here. You do your thing."
Man, it's
So
like two concentric circles with like a ditch in the middle. It's
mhm,
kind of like a what you would associate with like a Celtic earthworks project almost.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. All of this is done by this little fish. Like that fish is like tiny enough that he would fit in the little ditch in the middle, and he builds this massive thing. That's why I call it like fish crop circle, because it's almost like, in terms of the scale of it, it's like a person making a crop circle. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty neat puffer
so
fish.
yeah. Yeah, fish behavior. Fish really, like, people really don't give fish enough credit in terms of just being, I guess, just being an animal. Most people focus on like the tetrapods, but in terms of like diversity, the rayfin fish, there's like something like 22,000, more than 22,000 living species of rayfin fish. So the number of rayfin fish alive is like on par with just all the tetrapods almost. And the diversity and the kind of environment and habitat that they live in are, uh, more diverse than that of terrestrial like tetrapods in general. People think like, oh, they're just limited to water, but Earth's is like 70% water. That's a wide range of habitat, and they could live in places that no tetrapods could ever hope to live in. Like, for example, there's been snailfish that's been found in some of the deepest part of the ocean, like more than 10 kilometers below sea level.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so these are environments that are like absolutely crushing. Like, this is probably one of the only species of snailfish that, like, only species of vertebrate animal that can live in that kind of an environment. Yeah, down at like, the Mariana Trenches, because no other vertebrate animals could survive that.
Indeed.
But yeah, fish are cool. More people should like, appreciate fish
Oh,
beyond just
Oh, yeah.
thinking of like fish and
one
chips
more
and stuff.
thing I want to add about fish, actually. There are multiple recorded encounters Excuse us, sorry, we have a wood delivery that just happened.
Okay.
But anyway, there are multiple recorded encounters of fish that work in tandem with other unrelated critters like octopus or moray eels, where they will work along the reefs, and one will work high, the other will work low, and the one in the low will be able to get into the little crevices and fish out the
Yeah.
little critters and flush out
Um,
more food.
yeah. So there's an example of like groupers hunting with eels. I know that study from like a while ago. The other one you mentioned is like what, octopus? I'm more familiar with like moray eel eating octopuses, but maybe like cooperative. Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, there's some cooperation that goes on there. My dog will speak now.
Yes, apparently.
On cue! Haha!
yeah. Um, so yeah, there's a wide range of really extremely interesting behavior that goes on beneath the water, and people don't quite realize that because both they don't, we're terrestrial animals, so we don't get to see many of that kind of behavior in person. But also at the same time, many people are still stuck in that lineage, like that kind of Aristotle thinking of the ladder of creation, with human beings and mammals being on top,
Oh yeah.
and like below them, like reptiles and amphibians and fish are like really low down on the I guess the vertebrate totem pole, but that's not how evolution works at all. These guys operate in a completely different environment and has evolved in a completely different direction that you know it's just they're just different, they're built different as
Right.
people
Yeah.
like to say, and they are, many of their behavior are just as, and in some case more sophisticated than that of some terrestrial animals, terrestrial, tetrapod vertebrate animals. There is. He's a story about partnerfish between a fish and a octopus. Okay, so it's a octopus and a grouper.
I see.
I wonder whether it's something to do with groupers, because yeah, groupers is the one that cooperated with um the moray eels as well.
Never forget, we are also fish.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Phylogenetically speaking, like salmon and groupers are more closely related to us than they are to other animals that are called fish, like sharks and rays. It's only because of like basically fish, according to the Book of Fish by Nelson, fish is basically just a general term that's been given to any vertebrate animals that have fins and retain gills throughout their entire life, and that's basically what we call fish. But yeah, fish is one of those terms that don't really make any like taxonomic sense. Like worms, worms. There's many different phyla of animals that are called worms.
Right.
Worms, I tell my first year biology student, is basically a term for a a lot like a squishy, longish animal that have no vertebrate, no bones. That's a worm, and that encompasses like multiple different phyla of different kinds of animals.
Right. It's kind of a catch all.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, fish are cool. This has just been a fish pod. Welcome to the fish podcast, Gallimaufric fish cast.
Guaranteed Darren Naish will have turned this off long ago.
I don't know how many people are still watching, but like, yeah,
Oh, is
fish are
anybody
basically.
monitoring the chat?
Uh,
No, not at
I
all.
I am monitoring the chat. Oh, look, like Adrian's here.
Hey,
Yeah.
Adrian.
How's it going, Adrian? I hope you
Our
enjoy the
number
fish
one
talk.
fan. Yes, enjoy the fish talk. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah. So yeah, Anyone else have anything to add about fish and fishy stuff?
I was wondering about fish that give live birth. I know
Oh
guppies
yeah.
do, but they
Mhm.
don't build nests or anything like that.
Yeah, there is a number of different example of fish that give live birth. Of course, the one that a lot of people know about would be sharks. Sharks have different kinds of live birth. In fact, the shark live birth is really interesting because they sometimes they have, I guess, uh, they have kind of a battle royale that happens in their womb. So they have like really precocious offspring that they start, you know, duking it out with each other and like eat each other when they're still in their womb. So,
And only the strongest survives.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They like they they are built different. Like
So
they
that's
they
only
feed
certain
on each other.
species. That's like blacktip reef sharks and some other
Yes.
related species, right?
Yep. Yeah. But they have like, I guess this is where it gets really complicated because the anatomy is a little bit different. So often they'll have like an active, kind of really precocious, like embryo that is inside their womb, and the womb is also partially open to the outside in the case of some rays. Because I do remember reading a paper about how they like scientists found this ray that has like babies inside of her that are already infected by ectoparasitic copepods because the copepods
Oh
somehow
wow.
made it in from the outside water and started infecting it from like before it even gave birth.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's another really interesting realm of biology relating to like elasmobranch reproductive behavior as well. Uh, there's a lot like fish, man. Like people should read about fish.
They should
You know,
also reassess their attitudes towards fish because, I think anything that we tend to eat, we kind of look down on. And,
Hmm.
maybe we shouldn't do that as much.
Yeah, fish are
yeah.
fascinating.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I feel like there's another part of it that people just tell themselves that, oh yeah, fish aren't very smart to like rationalize to themselves about eating animals to make them feel better. Like notice for example people who are pescatarians and like, oh, I'm a vegetarian except that I also eat fish. It's like, well, not like you're still eating. They're still animals.
Yeah,
Some of
really.
them have more sophisticated, inner life than some of the animals that you eat that are farmed animals even. So, yeah, either, I guess my attitude with like eating animals is like, you either commit to it or don't.
Exactly. I have nothing else to add about fish, except that we've got a freshwater species of cod that lives up here called a burbot.
Oh yeah, bourbon. Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
Mhm.
That's all I know.
It's called the
Uh,
burbot.
it's called the burbot. Yeah, it looks just like a cod too. It's just cool.
Yeah. Is it in the Gattidae family?
Yeah,
It looks like it might be in.
yeah,
Hang on,
yeah. It
let's
is.
have a look at what family it
It's
is.
literally the only species of freshwater cod in existence.
Oh, it's a Gattiform. Okay.
Yeah, and they even
Yeah,
look like it.
yeah. Fish common names are like so, or like it's useless. Like I see fish common names as being for me as a biologist being completely useless because like, so for example, the word cod refers to like the family of fish that includes like Atlantic cod and stuff like that. But cod is also used to refer to things like grouper in Australia. Groupers are also cod. So, for example,
Oh wow.
potato cod is a species of grouper and it's found in Australia. And completely different family, completely different order of fish. Oh, actually, no, it's the same order, but it's like a completely different. Oh, it is a different order. Okay, yeah, completely different fish. It doesn't even look much like a cod. There's also in Australia another species of fish called Murray cod, which is a freshwater fish, and they also belong to a different family to the potato cod, which is a grouper. It belongs to a family that are also known as perch,
Oh, okay.
which
A
is different
perciform.
from perch elsewhere, which is different from like sea perch. Sea perch refers to different things. It is so goddamn confusing.
Yeah,
Are
it
they
Like,
is.
a perciform fish or not?
oh, there's a lot of perciform. Like, there's a whole bunch of different things that are in the perciform fish because
Oh,
it
okay. So
contains
that's that
41.
does mean
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, 41% of all bony fish are perciforms.
I see.
So calling something like a perch or oh, is it a perciform? You might as well just say like, is it a bird? Like, yeah, but is it
Is this a
real?
bird?
Yeah, is this a bird? But yeah, perciform is like, yeah, that would contain, yeah, 160 families. Like, imagine the level of like taxonomic insanity as you try to work out what a species of fish is based on its name, because the perciform contains, over 10,000 species and 160 families, and all of them could
I am so
potentially,
sorry, Darren.
and all of them could be potentially all called like perch by someone at some point. Like, you got Persidae, um, which is like things like redfin perch, which we have in Australia too because they've been introduced. They are like an invasive species. And you have things called like sea bass. Sea bass and groupers are in the same family, and groupers are also sometimes called cod. So sometimes cod are bass and bass are cod. Um, and then you got rockfish, which are sometimes also called
Oh my
rock
god.
cod, which
We
are
we have
really
species of
cool.
rockfish up here too, so I'm
Yeah.
curious to see if it's the same kind of rockfish.
Rockfish are in the scorpion fish family, I think. Yeah. Which also contains things like lionfish.
Ah,
Let's have a
right.
look. Yeah. Oh, look, this ambiguation. Look at all these things that are called rockfish. Like, they're all
Oh,
completely
wow.
different. They're all rockfish. I'm telling you, common names for fish is just like, forget it. Like, you just. That's why I prefer referring to fish by like the families and stuff like that. And also, it doesn't help that in Australia we have like really different names for like something completely different when you get up to say northern hemisphere. So, for example, if you were to look up like whiting, so whiting the fish in northern hemisphere in Europe, the fish is so the original fish species to receive that name, that's actually a species of cod, or it's in the Gattidae family for me to be more exact. So these are called whiting, but in Australia, whiting also refers to fish which are in the Coelaganids. Let me see, Coelaganidae family. I can't even spell properly. Sand whiting would be a species I'm familiar with. Let's see, sand whiting. Yeah, so Siligo. So it belongs to this family called Coelaginidae family. So that's a whiting. This is also a whiting. Completely different order. Like just, but yeah. So this is in the Perciform order as well, because of course,
Right.
you could just like throw an arrow at a random like dartboard, and it's a good chance that what fish you have is a Perciformis because they're like 41% of our bony fishes. Yeah,
I am
Adrian's
I,
saying that fish taxonomy is hell. Um, I think I think it's mostly because like common names are so counterintuitive, as I've just talked about. You know, you got a cod is just any, oh, it's got a big mouth. It's called a cod.
Right. Or
Especially
a
in
bass.
Australia
A
now.
bass.
Yeah. Yeah, a bass. It's either a bass or cod. Or sometimes you have fish that have like, depending on where you are, they're both called bass, and like they'll be called bass in one region and they'll be called cod in another region. It's like, you know, it's like steam ham. It's more than unique.
Calling it a steamed ham.
It's like you call this fish a bass, even though it's very obviously a cod. It's more of a Unicode expression. So yeah, anyway, so this is what we call whiting here. If you come to Australia and you're talking about like fishing for whiting or like, you know, buying whiting, this is the kind of fish. A very different fish. The way you catch these guys is completely different from how you might catch these guys. Yeah, fish taxonomy, I find fish extremely interesting, but I basically ignore like common names because they have things like, you know, bass or cod or snapper. Oh my God, snapper. Snapper is another name that is like really confusing because snapper, up where you guys are fish that are in the Lujanid family or Lujanus. So these guys are called snappers.
Hmm.
In Australia, these guys are called, I think, emperors for some reason. But snapper in down here, they are these fish, which are completely different family once again, Sparrow-day. So they're in the family called the porgies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, also known as like sea brims, which do not confuse them with freshwater brims, which are more related to carp.
Oh my God. And
Madness.
I'm pretty sure carp is misused somewhere else too, right?
Oh, sure.
Um, I haven't seen carp surprisingly enough, I haven't seen carp apply to anything
Oh,
aside
really?
from carp. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I'm
okay.
actually like, well, now that I think about it, I think that's yeah, it's carp has just been uh referred to carp.
It's a common
Uh,
name that actually means something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, here's the entry for brim. It's just like freshwater and marine fish belonging to a variety of genera.
Now that one, the brim right there, they almost look like they're related to piranha, but maybe that's just their deep
It's just a
body.
superficial resemblance.
Okay,
I
it's
think the
conversion
Russian one's
evolution.
different. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just a common kind of, I guess you could say, like fishy shape. But like look at all these different genus, and they're not even in the same like family either. They're just all over the place. Like that's a brim. This is a brim. This is also a brim.
The hell, yeah.
Uh, this is a brim.
So for those of you listening at home, audio only, it's several different unrelated species of fish that really
Yeah,
have nothing at all to do with each other, but are called
that
a brim.
belongs to like different families. Some of them even like entirely different orders as well. It is really quite yeah, it's really quite vexating. Yeah, and also bluegills apparently sometimes are called brim as
Oh
well.
my God, bluegills.
It's like brim and bass and perch are the and cod are just like, you know, one of those terms that people like I guess used to throw out as a common vernacular. It's a fish. I'll just pick from one of the four words I remember about fish.
The four fish. The four
There's
fish.
only four
Tuna,
fish.
salmon, carp, and I don't know. Cod. That's it.
Cod.
Yeah. So yeah, fish fascinating and common name wise infuriating, and that's why I have stopped using common names for fish. I when I talk about fish, if I want to be specific about what kind of fish I'm talking about, I usually refer to at least the family, so that we can round down the ballpark from, you know, the 10,000 species of perciform fish that are out there. like that's really quite amazing when you think about it. Like that one order has almost double the number of species as there are of all living mammals. Like that one order of ravenfish.
Wow.
My goodness.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that mammals ain't shit, bruh.
It certainly is humbling, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. People talk about like, oh, this is the age of mammals. It's like, nah, it's actually, the ravenfish. And there was a paper published a while ago looking at like ravenfish diversity and found that they were one of the success stories from the end Cretaceous mass extinction event. Like after the KPG mass extinction event, the ravenfish just went and like exploded into all these different lineages. So if anything, it's like it's the age of the ravenfish, like in the Cainozoic. Mammals are just like the sprinkling garnish on top. We think we're all that because we got the dry land, but ravenfish is like, it's dry. Who wants to live up there?
Indeed, yeah. Adrian is talking about his sharks. He's got sharks. What they call the Baja shark, or Baja or Bala.
Oh,
Rainbow and rainbow and Bala sharks.
Let's just check what they are. Because I know there are some like aquarium fishes that are, I guess, they're not, they call sharks, but they're not like,
Do not, yeah.
they're not sharks. They are ravenfish, but they're called sharks because, so that's, okay. Shark minnows.
A Bala
that's-
shark. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah. See, that's what makes things even more confusing when you have terms like this. Oh, they're actually cyprinids. So they're actually related to carp.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. There's the carp and minnow family. Another thing that's confusing about minnows is that they're also commonly used as a term to just describe any tiny freshwater fish.
Oh, we were discussing this a few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about like, I was talking about how I came across that Russian YouTuber that's got that fishing hack with the hairpin
I'm
and
addicted,
using
by the way.
hair clip. Yeah.
We're gonna have to share a link to this because that's a pretty great channel.
Oh, the Russian fisherman with like his cool fishing hack. Yeah, let me write this down. Russian fishing hack. I'm actually watching a fishing anime this season
Of course.
for Slow Loop, but watch it because I'm watching it for the fishing. The ratio of like fishing versus moe anime girl hijinks is like teetering towards a ratio that I'm not really particularly into. It's like more fishing, please. I still think the best fishing anime in recent time was one that I tweeted about a lot when it was airing, which was called The Diary of Our Days on the Breakwater Club. Every episode is just completely focused on the fishing. It's just like, that show is entirely, that meme about like, I only say morning and not good morning because if it was a good morning, I'd be fishing.
Right.
The show, that is the show.
I see. Okay.
So Slow Loop, I mean, come on, bring back that fly fishing action, man, because you're really, really losing me in terms of, all of this moe anime girl hijinks that I don't particularly care for. I just want to see them go fishing.
I was about to say you haven't talked about anime much at all this stream here.
Yeah, that's right, because I've been busy talking about fish, my other passion.
Yes.
Like anime or fish, which one should I talk about? Yeah, so I guess that lead into like anime I've been watching this season. So, like I mentioned, Slow Loop. Don't really recommend it for anyone because it's especially like I'm only into it because of the fishing and the last episode doesn't have enough fishing for I think I skipped or didn't pay attention to most of it. It's just like, oh, they're just doing more anime girl shit. I'm just gonna have it playing in the background and play out the last, and they baited me there at the start where they were talking about like fly fishing and how there's like the line stripping basket. So some like people go fly fishing, especially if they go fly fishing in like saltwater environment. There's a little basket you can wear in front of you, so when you like pull the line in, it would go in the basket instead of just being all out everywhere and getting damaged and stuff like that.
Oh,
And they were talking about like polarized glasses. It's like, yes, yes, this is the fishing action stuff that I'm here for. And then they went off on some other shit, and it's just like, I don't really care about that. But like, I guess the other anime I'm watching this season that I also don't really recommend anyone is Girls Frontline, the anime adaptation. And because anyone who follows me on Twitter would expect that I'm be watching Girls Frontline. Like, it goes without saying. Why did I even bring it up? Of course, I'm watching the Girls Frontline anime adaptation. The short version of my impression of it is that line from HBO's Chernobyl, which is like not great, not terrible. Uh, it's watchable for someone like me who is super into this particular franchise because I'm a unrepentant Girls Frontline simp. But for anyone else, I don't think the appeal is there because the things that would otherwise appeal to, say, like a different, like just the usual anime watching audience, which is like, oh, if there's like cool action and shit like that, the stuff that would otherwise be the case, it's just not there. The direction is really, really bland. To be entirely honest, I kind of saw this coming because it's being produced by Asahi Production. Um, you might recall that I talked about Asahi Production a year ago, actually, when I was talking about Heaven's Design Team, and like I really loved that show. That show was fantastic. Like, if you want some edutainment anime talking about animals and stuff like that, that show is really like that show is really for you. But in terms of like trying to get them to make an anime that is really action heavy, they just like it's like trying to ask a studio that is used to making like nature documentaries that mostly compose of like stock footage and voiceover and shit like that to then make like a John Woo shootout guns blazing action series. It just doesn't quite work. So I guess I kind of saw this coming. It's still a little bit disappointing, but what can you do? And it's not very welcoming to newcomers simply because it's they don't explain things. They only just started explaining like why some of the things are the way that they are, and the aesthetic of Girls Frontline, especially at the start, like because this is they're taking it all the way from the start. I noticed that with the character design in terms of Girls Frontline, they started out having like the character design being inspired either by military uniforms or by otaku anime bullshit like that fucking cat girl nun there. Whereas later on, especially when you get up to like, volume two of the art book, they are more informed by like tactical and like funky Harajuku-esque streetwear. And that's the kind of aesthetic that I prefer. So this is kind of like a rough start. Um, if I was playing armchair director, I would have started the story at a later stage in the game. But the fans probably don't want that. The fans will probably like, oh, let's take it all the way up from the beginning. I would have preferred the part that they're going through right now being told in media res. But once again, this is me playing like armchair director. So, Girls Frontline, I'm gonna keep watching it. I love shit posting about it, especially some of the dumpier parts. I know that people, some of the fanboys online are like focusing on like really specific parts where they didn't draw the guns properly, and some of them do look quite jank. But like in their defense, the defense of the studio, it's on screen for like 2 seconds. Unless you're like a gun nut like me, you probably won't notice. But I guess most of the people who are watching this show would be like, I guess to put it nicely, firearm enthusiasts. So they would be able to spot like, hang on a sec, that carry handle isn't properly drawn or something like that, or that stock it belongs to an M16 not an M4 submob. Um, so yeah, Ghost Frontline, it could have been better. But the show that I really did enjoy quite a lot, and I got to catch up on it simply because Ghost Frontline didn't turn out to be as good, is actually a show called Vivy, or Vivy like it was called Vivy the Fluorite Eye Song, and it's actually a science fiction story. For some reason, I didn't see this last year. It aired like probably the middle of last year, and it was like looking at the story now and in hindsight, this is totally like 100% up my alley. And I missed out on it simply because, well, 200 freaking anime aired last year. So it's no
Holy
surprise that
cow.
this is like this is the kind of like media environment we're living in now. It's like 200 freaking anime, and Katakawa has announced that it wants to like produce even more anime. Like most of the shows, I don't even freaking know because they're like isekai bullshit that is like drugstore another world, or like I was reborn in this fantasy RPG. It's just there's too much anime, and like a lot of it is just totally forgettable, and like no one even remember it like 3 weeks afterwards. But like Vivy, I missed because it just wasn't up on my radar, possibly because people were describing it as like an idol anime, which is really weird. I mean, there's singing. Vivi, the main character, is like a songstress, and so there's like singing, there's music involved. It's almost like, I guess I wouldn't call it a musical, but there's a lot of songs. There's quite a few bangers in there. But like, calling Vivi a, freaking, calling Vivi a idol anime is like calling Hannibal a cooking show. Like,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
like, yeah, but that's not what it is. It's a science fiction story, and I would highly recommend it if you're into like, you know, robots and sci-fi and stuff like that. The animation looks fantastic, unlike Ghost Frontline. And also, it's like basically the story revolves around. At least that's the name that she was given later on in the story. I think her name started out as being Diva, and she is a songstress, and she sings and performs in this theme park. And so one day, a robotic teddy bear showed up and told her, like, I'm an AI from the future, 100 years from now. And what happened was that the AI has evolved to a certain, I guess, technological singularity level. And they decided that they're gonna have to eradicate humanity. And I want your help in altering the course of history to prevent that particular future from happening. And so it's a series of stories about Vivy being accompanied by Matsumoto, this future artificial intelligence, to intervene during what, in hindsight, has been seen as key historical event in contributing to this technological singularity that caused AIs to evolve to a level where they decide that they're gonna wipe out humanity. And there's a lot of like what I like to call AI angst and pathos. Like, what is my mission in life? Like, what do I live for as an artificial intelligence? That kind of stuff. I really like that kind of thing. So if you're into like sci-fi stories, especially the ones about robots, whether you talk about like Isaac Asimov and the stuff that is inspired by Isaac Asimov, or things like Blade Runner, like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, kind of Philip K. Dick stuff. I
Right.
would highly recommend this. There's also another anime that is an older one, which is similar in theme to Vivy, but maybe a bit more subdued and not quite as, apocalyptic with like robots and AIs rising up to get rid of humanity. There's this anime that aired between 2008 and 2009 called Time of Eve, which is also about like Android slash AI human relationships and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're into AI stuff, I would highly recommend that. In fact, Seven Seas, which is a manga and light novel publisher, they recently announced that they've licensed the novel that Vivy is based on So if you want to like, it's one of those like if you watch the anime, check out the novel, or if you're not gonna watch the anime, check out the novel that it was based on. So yeah, Vivy, it's really really good. Like I can't believe that flew underneath my radar. It didn't help that I don't know. Sometimes like anime viewing people have this weird perspective on things where they describe things strangely, like describing this science fiction story as an idol anime. So, but yeah, I just watched Vivy over the course of a few days and like enjoyed every moment of it. So I would highly recommend this particular anime. That would be one of my picks from last year that I got to catch up on.
Nice.
Excellent. So, Scott, you want to just go ahead and jump into your discussion about RPGs? I know Zach's not here,
No,
but
it's no good without Zach. I was kind of
okay.
interested in getting his perspective of uh, versus what. I'm sorry, I am really really chilly in this room. That's it. Where I'm it's getting down to the single
Yeah.
digits outside, so this room doesn't have any heat.
No, and it's not insulated very well either. So, I guess we'll
So
have RPG chat the next time we record a podcast.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
or a live stream,
yeah. We'll do it on another live stream.
Yeah,
Like
I think
live
so.
stream like this, give us more room to talk about various different things.
Yeah, so that's fine. Um,
All
so
right.
yeah, I
So
got
I
nothing
think.
else.
All right. Well, I guess we had fish chat today, and that's pretty good. I
That
like
was pretty
talking about
good.
fish.
Yeah.
It is pretty good.
This is like the whole like this particular live stream. It's fish the live stream. I think that much like the ratio of like living vertebrate animals, most of this live stream were taken up by chatting about fish.
And you know what? I am okay with that.
As am I.
Well, well, if we've got nothing else, we can cut it off right here, and we'll get Scott all warmed up and call this a wrap.
All right.
Okay.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed our different forays into mostly talking about fish, but then me ranting about like anime and being disappointed with the Girls Frontline anime adaptation, but still watching it. But on the bright side, I got to watch Vivy, so that worked out really, really well.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll
Yep.
catch you around next time.
Yeah, our new episode's coming up soon.
Right. Yep. We're
Yep.
gonna be talking about what are we talking about in that episode?
Duo Dixon,
Dougal
the
Dougal
Dixon.
Dixon.
dinosaurs.
Good old Dixie Doug. We're
Oh,
Yep,
talking about
look
him
forward to
again.
that.
And probably the last time we're gonna be doing a deep dive into
Yeah, it's
Wilson's
gonna be
work.
for a while. We're pretty burnt out on Dixie Doug's antics. A bit too many Dixie Duds in too short a period of time got us all burnt out.
yeah.
Yep. So we'll talk about something else new and exciting, possibly Codex Seraphinianus. You never
Oh,
know.
yes.
Stay tuned.
Afterwards.
I'm pretty sure we've locked that in.
Absolutely.
Indeed. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
Right.
Have a good night. Catch you later.
All right. Bye bye.